Awesome. I am excited to be here today. So like Beth said, this is definitely a remote experience, but it's also something that none of us have ever really done before. So I wanted to go ahead and share with you a couple of things. I went and was actually, it was on March 11th. I was out with my wife on our anniversary dinner, and we started seeing crazy news come across about, Tom Hanks and Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz kind of basically giving a face to COVID-19. So that night, my team and I had been putting a lot of remote content together anyway over the last year or so, since CloudApp is a remote kind of first tool and we're a remote first company. But we put together this remote work bill of rights, knowing that people would kind of be thrust into this cycle and may not know how to react to it. So this was day one quarantine for me. Like I said, this is definitely not a normal experience for anyone, really. So take that out of your minds. This is not really remote work. This is working from home under a global pandemic, which has never happened before. But the interesting thing about all of this is that I don't know about anyone else, but the first few weeks were pretty rough, but I feel like I've hit a little bit of a groove. We do have kids at home for me, so my wife and I are trying to struggle to figure out how to homeschool kids, and we have little kids, so 7, 5, and 2. So trying to balance working and taking care of them all day. But we feel like we've hit it a little bit. Like was mentioned when I was coming on, we did a survey last fall, and we found that more than 50% of the younger generations, Millennial and Gen Z, were working remotely the majority of the time anyway. A lot of this was due to expensive costs of living, not wanting to have commute time, and just wanting to have more balance. So the good to come out of everything that's happening right now is that companies, I came from Adobe and have talked to a lot of colleagues there, and they're building remote work playbooks right now. They're figuring out ways to support their employees, to support their teams, and provide a remote work framework that will hopefully be useful in the future. So, we started as novices. We started at the very beginning. A lot of people were working remote, but again, this is not a normal circumstance. I talked to a lot of people who were fully remote at different companies, and they said, yeah, this is definitely different. There's no entertainment options. I can't go work at my local coffee shop like I used to. It's all just a little bit different. So when we go, with this Bill of Rights, hopefully it'll help things get a little bit better. And then when we go back to normal, hopefully we'll have a nice playbook for all of us, and also to run our companies. So the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights is that we all have the right to take Zoom calls in our pajamas with children screaming in the background or dog barking at a passerby. So this is my family on the left, my 3 boys and my wife, and they have definitely joined me for a lot of Zoom calls, the little kids, mostly the 2-year-old. He loves to come in and say hi to people and wave and to kind of take center stage and tell jokes and things. So it's been really interesting to kind of see all of this break down the barriers of video conferencing and just connecting in general and working remote. I appreciate that we're all pretty authentic in everything right now. You see my collar up front on top here, but I have shorts on as well, and just socks, no shoes. You can see that on my Twitter feed. But it's been a really interesting move to see people just, not having perfect lighting, not necessarily always having a library of books behind them, just being in their bedrooms or wherever they can find space. I don't have an office like you saw in that first picture. I am in a desk in my bedroom, and just finding space and quiet when I can. Amendment number 2 is that all remote workers shall have the right to mute Slack between the hours of 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. So I put Slack, but obviously all work. There shouldn't be necessarily a feeling that you need to always be on. In fact, we may even need to take more breaks now than we did before. With this kind of mentally grasping this situation, this pandemic, and there was also an earthquake in Utah, like week 1. So like we've got all this craziness going on that we're all trying to deal with. So, take breaks, go on walks, get outside if you can. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But one thing for my wife and I, I'm a 90s kid, was born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, grew up in the 80s as well, but was kind of hitting my teenage years in the 90s, and right when Seinfeld was coming out in the late 80s. And so we've been kind of watching Seinfeld on Hulu every night, and that's been kind of a escape for us to take a deep breath, relax, and connect before we do it all over again. Just like Groundhog Day, right? This is one thing I've seen a lot of is deep work conversations. It'll be interesting to see what kind of comes out of all of this with kind of talking about productivity, because I've seen some people saying that this is going to be the most productive time ever, and things are going to be things have been so much more productive since I've started working from home. Interesting to see when someone comes out with some data on that. But all remote workers shall have the right to deep work. So this is when you really focus, take a step back, and really connect with the work that you're working on. One thing that was interesting from the survey that CloudApp did last fall is that people listed chatty coworkers as kind of their biggest distraction. And I think that was around 30% of office workers said that. So, this gives you the opportunity to do a lot of deep work. For me, music really helps with that. I like classical, like instrumental type music that I can really focus but have some kind of background noise. But also find ways to balance this, right? So like yesterday, I did way too much deep work. I didn't take enough breaks, and I was really kind of anxious and feeling it at the end of the day. So I actually, when all the kids were in bed, I told my wife, I need to go outside and mow the lawn. I need to be outside, and I need to just kind of do something, that is around the beautiful day. So find ways to do deep work, but don't, get so deep that you forget to take little breaks. All remote workers shall have the right to be acknowledged during meetings. So, when I was managing a global remote team at Adobe, I was working with people in India, and I live in Utah, and India is 12 hours ahead. So it was always really kind of funky time zone wise. It was 12 hours exactly. So like you're either up early or you're doing a meeting late, and it was never super great. But I also had people that were in the Bay Area and then in Utah. So we had like this remote connection distributed team. And we do the calls sometimes at the offices. And so some people were dialed in and other people were in a meeting room. And I felt like that gave people an unfair advantage. So I switched it to all virtual. Everyone was on the video call versus some people in a meeting room and some people on the video call. And that really connected people. But my suggestion here is to bring a notepad with questions or things that you want to get out during the meeting. This will kind of start a skill that you eventually may not necessarily need a notepad, but you'll have developed the skill of speaking up and kind of getting your word heard. Virtual conferences or video conferences can be dominated by certain people, and you need to make sure that you make your voice heard so that you can be a part of the conversation and drive things moving forward. So this one is all remote workers shall have the right to shower each day. And, you know, we kind of like to think as adults that we're a lot different than kids. But I can tell you that if, as a dad of 3 little kids, when we move off of their routine, it just goes haywire. You know, there's meltdowns, there's sadness, they're hungry, and we really need to stick to a routine. And adults aren't too much different there. If you think about times when you disrupt your routine, which we've all been going through, you're maybe anxious, you may be ornery, you may not feel like you're achieving certain things. So I think a routine is good. You know, some people are going to want to be more structured than others, but finding out ways to create a routine for yourself in this craziness. Actually, a good friend of mine, Nir Eyal, is speaking at this conference. I did a podcast episode with him last fall, and he's an expert in this. Definitely check out his book, Indistractable. And it's all about calendar blocking and really being the most productive self. But I found that for me, waking up in the morning, having breakfast, taking a shower, getting ready for the day is really helpful. And this goes for remote work in general, not just this craziness. Number 6, all have the right to multitask and walk your dog in between calls, or take care of kids or do homeschooling. You know, this is not a normal kind of work setting. Obviously, this is get outside if you're not necessarily in stay-at-home quarantine with the virus. With those circumstances, you know, it's definitely more about connecting virtually and trying to keep your mind active while you're inside. But if you are able to get outside, take breaks, do what you need to do, take care of your kids. We've seen a really interesting spike with CloudApp. So CloudApp is a kind of visual communication tool. So it's really supportive of remote work, where you can take screenshots, videos, and GIFs, and then instantly share them with colleagues. We've seen spikes in usage of that, which as a collaboration tool between what used to be the morning commute. Usage is up about more than 2x. And also usage between the hours of non-working hours, so like 6 to midnight, 6 p.m. to midnight, have gone up more than 2x. So I like to say in some tweets recently, the new work week is now 7:30 to 9:30, then a break to help the kids do school, and then 10 to 11. And then, you know, it's a little bit more scattered where you're working at night and during the morning commute. So find ways to really multitask and get out and make sure you're taking care of yourself. All remote workers shall have the right to social distancing. So this is key. You know, we're all trying to, it started out with flatten the curve. Now it's crush the curve. We're all working hard to get things done. And it's really important to, you know, try and help where we can. But also, what's been kind of cool about all of this, I don't know about anyone else, but it's been a really fun time to connect with my family, friends, and other people. I'm the youngest of 6, and this picture on the left here is my older brother. And this is a text thread with my parents and my siblings. And we've had kind of this really fun text feed, you know, for the last 6 weeks or so, where we just kind of check in on each other, see how everyone's doing. And, you know, this picture I said is motivation for my quarantine hair here. But it's been fun to connect with people, but find ways to be social distant as well. Number 8, all remote workers shall have the right to skip the handshake and send a CloudApp video instead. I'm not going to get into a really heavy product push here, but I wanted to share a kind of remote work tool stack. And this is actually what I the story with CloudApp is I loved it so much at Adobe that I joined the company. But I also loved a lot of other tools at Adobe that I've carried over to CloudApp. Asana is great for task management. Slack is definitely a good tool as long as you're keeping control of it and pausing notifications, taking breaks when you need to. Zoom is what we use at CloudApp. I used Blue Jeans at Adobe, and both of them are excellent tools, great way to connect. Obviously, video conferencing is kind of bare minimum at this point. And then one thing I've loved is G Suite. So I used G Suite a lot when it first came out when I was doing my MBA, and then I kind of took a long break because we weren't on G Suite at my other companies. But then I've got back on it with CloudApp, and it's been a great way to collaborate and find connection points. So, you know, use tools, find things that are helpful for you. There's a lot of great products out there. I was looking at the Martech 8000 that came out the other day. I remember when that came out in 2011 and it was 100. So there's a lot of great tools. And definitely check out, you know, CloudApp, Asana, Slack. Also Airtable is one I would add here too that I've loved for kind of managing a content calendar. Amendment number 9, all remote workers shall have the right to use audio only to hide their circumstances during a meeting. One of my favorite things about this has been just seeing different personalities. So like some of the developers and our CTO will never turn on video. One developer actually at CloudApp, I never saw his face for the first year, and then we had an offsite and I finally got to see his face. But connect virtually and do things with your teams. So we've had a few team lunches at CloudApp. We did this Zoom Go that I created. It was pretty easy to get a lot of these, and I finally changed a diaper over a Zoom call, and that's what got me Bingo or Zoom Go. We also have done some scavenger hunts. So at-home scavenger hunts. If anyone wants that, I can send you the image of what the 10 items we looked for. Just send me a tweet and I can send that out. But find ways to connect. Even if you're audio only, it's a great way to connect with your team. All remote workers shall have the right to use virtual backgrounds to disguise their dirty house. This was definitely more of a thing in the beginning, but it's also been really fun to just see people be really authentic and kind of like, hey, you know, this is my laundry basket right next to me, and this is just real life, right? We're all kind of going through this struggle and trying to figure things out. I did actually create a Zoom GIF during one of my productivity breaks. It was a GIF of me walking in on myself on a call. So kind of, you know, have fun at that. Figure out ways to kind of become an expert in Zoom if that's what you're using, and, you know, have fun, and it's a way to connect with your team. So really, number one here, and this is all something we can take with us when all of this pandemic craziness is over, is forget how you used to work. And I'm sure, you know, we've all become better experts at this over the last 7 weeks. But if you decide to stay remote, learn from what you've been experiencing right now, and forget how you used to work with face-to-face conversation, being next to someone and being able to just kind of have serendipitous conversations with them. One kind of cool thing that we've had a few people doing is just zooming in and working next to each other. So like, not a planned meeting, just like zoom in and you're both kind of just working next to each other. And then, you know, the serendipitous conversations happen virtually. Find a routine that works for you. You know, we all still have work to do. So look for ways that you can feel productive at the end of the day, and look back and not be like, oh man, I'm so far behind because I slept in till 10 and I watched Netflix till noon and I didn't start working, and now I have to work until, you know, 2 a.m. and repeat the process. Get out of your space as much as you can. Ideally, you don't have your desk space in your bedroom like I do, because I like to, you know, separate work from where I sleep. But get out of your space and work in different places. Connect with others. I mentioned, you know, connecting with my family and friends I haven't talked with in a decade, and just kind of like having, seeing how everyone's doing. Zoom calls, FaceTime, any ways you can kind of connect with people is really important. Use tools, collaborate, and organize. There's lots of great products out there. Give them a try. A lot of them are free to start, and see what kind of works for you. You know, everyone's going to be different, but there's a lot of tools that are, you know, provide immediate value, and you can kind of try them out and see if they work. And lastly, really just try and improve each day. I think it's important to try and find ways to make it feel like you're not just in this Groundhog Day, that you're really improving, getting better, and on a even better path than you were, you know, 7 weeks ago. So really try and do these things. And the more you practice, the more that you'll be able to really become a pro and be able to manage the remote work future, which is what it's looking like it'll become even past the pandemic. And this is day 27. This was almost 3 weeks ago that I took this, but I finally broke down. I'd been sitting, so I sat in that little kid chair in day one for literally in the entire day. It was an IKEA kid chair. And then I sat on a bench in my bedroom with like no chair, so a bench and then a little kitchen table. And then I finally broke down and went to my office and brought home this my standing desk there. So you know, try and find ways to be as comfortable as possible. I'm sure a lot of us are fighting for space, but it really helped me, even just mentally, to have a workspace that I could use.
Thank you so much, Joe. I love the amendments. I feel like it's so important, just with people working from home for the first time, joining this kind of remote thing. And I really like what you said about this isn't just working from home. This is working during a global pandemic. So to be patient with yourself and to, figure out what's right for you. So thank you so much, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fun.